A lot can happen in just a couple days. We started with a working Lexus, and then we had a broken Lexus, and then we had a working Lexus again, then we had no Lexus at all.
Yep, so Lexus still isn't sold, and now she dead. So yeah, these are the parts that normally don't make YouTube videos. So now just waiting for a tow truck and we'll bring it home, try and figure out what the hell's gone wrong, and fingers crossed we can fix it and we don't go over budget. I think we have like $1,500 to spend to it's still in the budget, so it shouldn't be too bad, but just really annoying.
So the last time that you saw the Lexus was probably about a month ago, and that was when we fixed the screen on it, the touch screen. And in the meantime, we've had it up for sale on Facebook, car sales, pretty much every site you can think of, and just no one's buying it. Had a couple people interested, but nothing, went through. And then just the other day, Jamie was fortunate enough to be stranded on the side of the road because of it.
Yes, so we drive in the car about once or twice a week just to make sure everything's all good. Cars don't fare too well when they sit. Yes, driving home, peak hour traffic, Lexus decides to die on me. So that was a mission, trying to pull it off the side of the road, especially when you have to push a 2-ton car, just to get the tow truck home and figure out what's wrong. So we later then diagnosed that it was electrical. The starter motor had failed and wasn't charging the battery, and then it just so happened that the battery gave up as I was driving home. Starter motors aren't cheap, but not the end of the world when it comes to replacing them, unless it's on a Lexus GS300 Sport Luxury in 2007. Then it is. So Morgan and I spent probably 15 hours trying to do this alternator. For a bit of background, Lexus, the way you do it in the dealership is to take out all of the air conditioning system on the Lexus, which then would mean you have to regas the system. It's just a nightmare. So we didn't want to do that, and that's why it took so long. But we did it, and luckily we did it because we had someone the very next day wanting to buy it. So we're out on the driveway today because we've got to replace the alternator. Now, when we were testing the Lexus and we had the car running, there's that much play in the alternator bearing itself that the alternator gets extremely hot very quickly. So we don't have the luxury of working up in the shed. So today we're doing it on the driveway. So when we were diagnosing the problem with the Lexus, we already removed all the plastic trim that covers the engine, so we don't need to do that. But a big thing before we even start is to disconnect and isolate the battery, because we are dealing with electronics in the car. We want to make sure that there is no chance of any short circuit at all.
So for you guys sitting at home, this is the same video. For us, unfortunately, this is day 2. So yesterday we were working for about 4 or 5 hours trying to get this alternator out. The car comes in either V6 or V8. You'd think having the architecture to fit a V8 that there would be a little bit more room when you had the V6 in there. That's not the case. It is so tight,
And we found that out when we were trying to take the alternator out. So on most cars, it's just these two bolts here on the front, and you take the belt off and you pull the alternator out. Not so on Lexuses. They have added this sneaky little bracket. So basically we took the two bolts out and figured out that we couldn't actually take the alternator out, and we needed to go get the nut off the back of that bracket. The only problem being that you cannot see it from above or below, so you're just going in blind with your hand trying to fit a socket on it on a really tight spot. So we couldn't do it. So day two, you've seen the footage, we put the car on the lift, jacked it up. Turns out we could get a little bit more of access through the bottom. So we've done that. Morgan finally cracked the nut. We then had a few loom issues. This thing, the loom connects to it like 3 times. Lexus, that's a bit much. So we finally got rid of the loom and we could finally pick it out. So now what we have to do is chuck the new alternator in, which fingers crossed is a lot easier than taking one out. And it's quite crucial that we do this tonight because we have a buyer lined up tomorrow. So fingers crossed we get this done tonight, and fingers crossed the buyer buys the car. Morgan, cue the montage. So yes, we replaced the alternator. The reason why it was so hard, you probably wasn't too apparent in the video, was the fact that normally an alternator has 2 bolts, big long bolts that go through the front of the engine, easily accessible, not that hard. Not the case with Lexuses. They decided to add a second bracket and pin it from the back. So it was about 10 hours of Morgan with his hands in, around, we're all cut up because of it, just to try and get this one nut off the back of the alternator. So if you have a Lexus GS300 2007, send it in to get your alternator done. Don't even bother. It's just, unless you've got a hoist, no way.
Well, I gotta say as well, you can't actually even see the nut. Yeah. So I had my hand up in there. And
feeling around.
I took a nut off. Turns out it wasn't the nut.
So, and it's too small to get mirrors in. Yeah. So you can't use mirrors. You can't. Yeah, you've got to just kind of
go on and blind.
Very, very blind. But it was a good thing we did replace that alternator, because turns out we had someone wanting to buy the car the very next day, and they did buy it. Finally. So we had that car for about 3 months. Very, very long time, a lot longer than we wanted. But we got rid of it nonetheless. Now, the downside though is we did lose money. So we've got the book here. Yes, it is the first L that we're taking of the series. So when we started, we had $13,114 to play with. We bought the Lexus from the auctions with all the auction fees and everything included. That was $10,243. We then had to get the car ready to be registered on the road. That was another $100. And we then had to register it. Now the way it works here in Queensland might be a little bit different depending on what country you're in, but the larger the engine, more capacity, more cylinders or rotors, depending on what your engine is, the more expensive the insurance is. So where the Swift only cost us $350 to register, the Lexus cost us $716, so a ton more. Then once the car was on the road, as we were driving, a rock flew up and smacked the windshield, causing a nice big chip. So we had to get that replaced. That was $170. We also noticed that the brakes were a little bit warped, which I'll link in the video up there. 2 giant rotors, massive, bigger than my face, ridiculous. And because of that, $240 for 2 rotors, which was, crazy. Probably my favorite part of the Lexus build replacing and repairing the screen, that only cost 20 bucks. That was really cheap. Worked, I mean, it's probably gonna work forever until that ribbon cable snaps again, which probably is another 10, 15 years. So awesome, awesome replacement, especially when you consider that Lexus charges you the price of a new entertainment unit, which is around about $4,000 to $5,000, then labor, and very, very expensive. Then we had the alternator. Now, when we were getting prices initially, we were looking at around about the $500 to $600 mark. Thankfully for us, we have friends in the business automotive world who hooked us up, and that alternator only cost us $350. Big thank you to Mitch for hooking that up for us. And then we had to roadworthy it for a second time because the roadworthy had expired because we had the vehicle for so long. So that was another $120. We did have insurance and stuff throughout the months, which was $48.38 a month. But basically, it cost us a grand total of $11,908 by the end of it, and we did not sell it for that much.
No.
No. So we ended up selling it for $11,000. Now, the reason why we let it go for that little, the car had been up for sale for almost 2 months at this point. We'd had one person look at the vehicle. He decided to put his money elsewhere, and dead silence. It was on car sales, Facebook, Gumtree. We were even contemplating eBay at a point, and nothing, literally nothing. Then when the alternator decided to poo itself, that was kind of the final straw. We were ready just to throw the car back into the auctions and just cut our losses. If we were to have done that, we would have probably, we reckon, only got around $9,000 to $9,500, which would have mean we would have taken a big L on that one. But it just so happened that as we were replacing the alternator, someone messaged us through car sales, thank you car sales, and ended up buying the car for $11,000. So we were looking at probably taking about a $3,000 hit if we went through the auctions, but we ended up finding someone last minute and only losing $1,000. So it is still $1,000. It is one step back, unfortunately, but hopefully with the next car we can take 2 steps forward. So yes, in the next episode of Lemon to Lambo, we will be looking at our next flip, most likely through the auctions, unless I can find a screaming good deal on Facebook or somewhere else. But yes, so we're thinking, the reason we think we kind of got stuffed up with this one is, one, we didn't take into account the kind of following behind Lexus and more so the GS300 product. Now we are both JDM fanboys, so we know about the GS300s, the old school ones that had the JZs, tons of popularity. They're almost selling for the same price as what the new one that we had is, which is kind of funny, which kind of should have been a warning bell for us that they're maybe not so sought after. Secondly, the market at the moment, cars were selling like our Swift in a day, just bang, gone, give me the car, all for asking price. And I've seen other cars being bid up over asking price. There's just been that much demand, but that's not the case anymore. So I think that was a factor as well. And the car's ugly, very ugly. Don't get me wrong, the car was fantastic. It was probably the best daily driver I've ever had. But just, yeah, it's ugly. From the back it wasn't too bad, but the front, ugh. But yes, so in the next episode, we'll be hunting for our next one for Lemon to Lambo. But in the next episode of the channel, we've got a few more things coming up. We've got my car reveal. We've got our friend Blake's suspension, awesome suspension / rotors, looks epic. And yeah, we've got a few more things coming down the pipeline. If you're local to Brisbane or the Gold Coast area, we have meets monthly and ours is coming up soon, very, very soon. So we'll link the Facebook page down below. Turnouts have been awesome. I'll link up the last cruise video / meet. We had over 100 cars rock up, about 200 people or so.
Filled up the car park.
Yeah, there were no spaces, completely gone. We had a Lambo there was 3 or 4 GTRs. There was mental. So if you're in that Brisbane to Gold Coast region, click the link below, the Facebook link, that'll take you to the event, and yeah, we'll see you there. You can come say hi to Morgan and I. But yeah, if you've liked this video, hit that like button, comment below, especially what car you want us to see in the channel, what car you want us to flip. But yes, most importantly, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next Lemon to Lambo.